Hello and welcome to Crowforest, the podcast. So last time, we finished up the last day of the first production trip, and so this time we will pick back up with post-production, starting on July 3 of 2022. Today was the first official day of post-production. I had tried to start it earlier in the week, but I was having computer trouble and I had to get that sorted out first. After a week of wrestling with the RAM, I found out that my main problem was actually a corrupted Final Cut Pro library. Oh well, live and learn, I guess. I may or may not go back and add this part to the book. Probably I've already spent enough time of this book ranting about Apple and their various frustrating things about them. But when I say I was wrestling with the RAM, like I was attempting to upgrade it, which if you've upgraded RAM in a Windows unit, you know that that is a very simple and straightforward process, but you are probably aware that Apple does not like to make anything straightforward, and so they make it almost impossible, not quite impossible. I did find a breakdown online of exactly how to upgrade the RAM in your Mac computer, and it involves pretty much taking the whole thing apart. So, normally what you would do is take off the back panel and simply remove the RAM sticks, add new ones, or if you still have slots available, simply add additional RAM sticks to your Mac. So if you had two 1 gigabyte sticks and you have 4 slots, so you add 2 more 1 gigabyte sticks and upgrade from 2 to 4 gigabytes, for instance, then that's pretty straightforward. But Apple does not make anything straightforward. Their back panel is not removable, so what you have to do is remove the front by slicing off the screen with a special tool that you can buy, which means that you then have to carefully remove the wires connecting the screen to the rest of the computer, which I knew that you could do because they have screen replacement options for if you break your screen, so it's like, well, okay, clearly there's a way to get this off without messing things up, theoretically. But then, after you do that step, which sounds like a whole thing in itself, after that you have to proceed to basically disassemble the entire rest of the computer until you get to the RAM sticks, which are located all the way in the back. Because, remember, simply taking off the back panel, they're right there, ready to use, but they don't let you use the back panel, so you have to go through the front, and now they're all the way in the back, under all this other computer stuff. So you have to remove essentially everything, and replace your RAM sticks, and then you have to put it all back together, and, somehow reseal the screen back onto it, and don't mess up those 2 little wires, or else you won't have any kind of a display. And I found an article online that breaks down the entire, I think it was like 75-step process, and I'm like, ooh, so that is technically an option. I don't want to do that. So, yeah, that was something that I was struggling with for a while, and it's like, do I do this? Is it worth it? Should I get a new computer? I don't have the budget for any of this nonsense. But fortunately, I found the corrupted Final Cut Pro library and was able to at least do a temporary solution there, so yeah, Final Cut Pro is a whole thing in itself, and I get deep into that later in this book, but, yeah, Apple does not like to make anything easy or straightforward. So, yeah, I guess consider that the first of my Apple rants, which I may or may not go back and add that into the book specifically. It's a little outside the course of what I set out to write about. So I don't know. Maybe I'll briefly. I'm not sure, but anyway. After a week of wrestling with my RAM, I found out that the main problem was actually a corrupted Final Cut Pro library. Oh well, live and learn, I guess. So today, I booted up my software and started editing together the footage that my sister and I shot over the weekends. I guess it was technically 2 weekends ago now. When starting a new project like this, a lot of times it can be hard to even know where to start. When I made my first movie, I got very overwhelmed with all the different shots to keep track of, trying to decide when to do what and everything else you can think of. In fact, once I had released the episodic versions of my movie as storyline segments wrapped around my Halloween review videos, I was so burnt out on the whole process that I just gave up and packed all the footage away. It was years before I actually went back and finished editing the movie version. So this time around, I knew that I needed to be much more organized, and to go into the process with a plan. And so, following along with my plan, I cut together the trailer first. This is a good place to start because it gives you an overview of all the footage that you have, and it forces you to look through everything and pick out the most visually interesting shots, and the shots that turned out the best. And it gives you a clearer view of all those shots that maybe didn't turn out as well as you had hoped, and that you might want to refilm. That's one huge advantage of digital film. It's cheap to refilm stuff. The other reason why I wanted to start with the preview was so that I could then send the image-locked trailer to my composer for scoring. I want to release this trailer on Halloween this year, so I want to give him plenty of time to work on it. That way, even if he's busy with other projects, or if we end up having to communicate back and forth to solve some unforeseen problem, there will still be enough time to get it done. So I cut together a preview, beginning with a shot up in the attic featuring one of Maureen's ad-libbed lines that really sounded like a good trailer line. The line being, "Is anyone up here?" Which, yeah, logically doesn't make a lot of sense, but is a very good trailer line. So, yeah, go check out that trailer if you haven't yet.
Is anybody up here? Hello?
Then I cut to my new production logo. A zoom-out video starting on a wax figure standing by a miniature house, and then zooming out to show Crowforest Productions spelled out in Legos. It's a really cool logo, but for the trailer I couldn't use the whole thing, so I just put a couple of quick shots of it, fading to black in the middle to make the transition. After that, I assembled the trailer in much the same way that I had done on the rough cuts of the trailer previously. Only now I was able to use the proper movie clips that we had filmed instead of the placeholder clips that I had been using. The trailer looked really good when it was done, and I'm really excited to see how it all comes together once my composer writes the music for it. Okay, I guess I'll call that good for this episode. I went off on that whole long rant, so, didn't get quite as far in the book as I thought, but, that's just kind of how Apple does you sometimes. So, next time we can come back and pick up with July 4 of 2022. So, come back next time for July 4 of 2022. Hope to see you then.